All right, welcome back to another episode of Real Talk, Michigan Edition. Game, the week of the game. Jeff here, Dan. What's going on, dude?
It's here, baby.
It's here. Somehow the season kind of just blew right by us. I literally was just today kind of going back and looking at some of our previous episodes, just seeing views, things like that. And I mean, literally, I was looking, I was like, man, I feel like we just previewed the Big Ten West, which is how we kind of kicked off the season. And then we went into the Big Ten East, and then we did Michigan, and next thing you know, it was week 1, and now it's here, week 12. So really crazy. Hell of a season. You know, literally it just feels like yesterday we were at State College. Obviously, it's probably been almost 10 days ago now. But, yeah, dude, season's kind of flying by.
It for me, it goes in like 3 chapters. Well, let's just say 4 chapters. Well, yeah. So we'll say chapter 1 is off season leading up to it. Second chapter is non-conference, which is pretty much September. Next chapter is Michigan State. That's usually around Halloween, and then it concludes with Ohio State, and it's just like those bullet points, and it just makes it fly right by, man. That's why football is, my favorite sport, and it's a lot of people's favorite sports, and we like it, we enjoy it so much because it's only here for 4 months out of the year, which you look at it in some ways, and it's like it's a good portion of the year, but then again, it's just like that corridor.
Yeah, it's such a unique sport because the urgency is so high, especially in college football, especially this season. And I'm sure we'll talk about the urgency of both this game and the playoff picture. We'll talk a little bit later, but yeah, I think football season for me kind of falls pretty much the same way you just laid it out. You got, you know, the spring game where you get your first glimpse and you get your the recruiting's already been wrapped up, and you go into summer and you're kind of just like doing your summer things, but you just know football's on the horizon. You wear your Michigan hat out in public, and people are like, "Go Blue! Can't wait for the season." You're feeling the vibes, and then by week 1, it's like, or here we go, non-conference. We should walk through these 3 or 4 opponents, and then you get into Big Ten play, and things kind of get a little more serious, like you just said. And next thing you know, we're playing a rivalry game, and these last couple of years, it's usually been Michigan State first, and then you're like, all right, let's hit Penn State. And then as soon as you get past Penn State, it seems like no other team matters except Ohio State. And that's how you find yourself in trap games like Illinois and like the game we're going to talk about briefly here today, Maryland. It wraps up 31-24, but the story of this game for me, you said it on your pod. I listened to the first half of it today. This game was over with if J.J. McCarthy doesn't throw a first-half interception to close the half. It would have been 30-10. I'm sorry, that breaks their will going into the locker room. They're not trying to come out and win the game in the second half. But because they intercepted there, they're down 23-10, and then they score right away coming out of the half. It completely changed the vibes of the ball game at that point.
Yeah.
And very much different scenario than Illinois last year where they kicked their ass in the first half, but Blake Corum had gotten hurt, so the team morale was down. The team morale wasn't necessarily down. I wouldn't think it was. Obviously, Harbaugh not on the sideline, stuff like that. They're going through other off-season things, or off-the-field things. But it was just an interesting game where many people that I knew prior to the season starting said Maryland's the game to highlight, because it's going to be after an emotional, quote-unquote, win if they beat Penn State, and it's going to be before a look-ahead. It's the sandwich of Penn State, Ohio State. Joel Klatt talked about it this week. He's like, coming off an emotional game, going into an emotional game, horrible spot against Maryland here. He called it right away. He's like, this is a horrible spot for Michigan. Now, like you said, Michigan was beating them down. It just – JJ throws the pick. He doesn't throw that pick there, and they even get 3 points. This might be a completely different narrative, but teach their own. Not everybody loved the way it got done. What did you think of the game against Maryland?
Well, real quick, talking about Illinois, last year I had made a comment in 2 different games. the Indiana game and then the Illinois game. The Indiana game, Mike Hart has a seizure on the sideline and gets carried off. The vibe of that whole game, the atmosphere, the energy sucked right out of the stadium for Michigan.
Yes.
With the Illinois game, Blake Corum goes out, and it was like just like when Mike Hart was a player, when he wasn't in the lineup for either being banged up or whatever. A lot of that was in 2007. The team just played like flat in a way. It was just different. Something was missing, of course. So that's how I felt about that. But like regarding Maryland, yeah, I feel like they score 7 points there. It's 30-10. I don't know what Maryland is going to do out of that half. And if Michigan stops them on that first drive, like I said, it's a different type of ball game. But Michigan's defense would make a big play, but then Maryland would respond on the next drive or two drives later. It was just they left that door just creaking open just a hair. And Maryland, kudos to them for being resilient and not giving up. They gave Michigan all they could handle. Illinois last year gave Michigan all they can handle, and luckily Michigan still came out on top. And that they got 2 interceptions from Mikey Sanders still, which were absolutely huge. And then of course the block punt help, the safety help on the intentional grounding. It just things went their way. And I don't think the intentional grounding was a bad call by any means. I thought it was the right one to make. But Tagovailoa, they rely on him in the passing game, and that's exactly what happened. The only thing that I got nervous, it was really 2 things that made me a little worried. Is Maryland having success on drag and crossing routes, had wide open middle of the field numerous times. Gave me PTSD for the Ohio State game in 2018-19. And then, Will Johnson, I'm going to say he was burnt toast, but he got beat a couple times by multiple receivers. It wasn't just like the same one. So it was just kind of make my eyebrows raise a little bit because those boys ain't even close to Marvin Harrison. But with Marvin Harrison, you'll have a guy over top occasionally to help out. But yeah, it was it was a fun game to watch. It was my son's birthday party at the bowling alley, so I had to do a lot of recapping. But from when I was watching, at times I was looking over my shoulder.
Yeah, I thought it was. It's really the tale of 2 halves for me. I'm done with this game. I think nothing less of Michigan after this game. I understand where people would be skeptical. People like our buddy Shane, who we've talked about so many times on this pod, first off, this goes back to 2021. I distinctly remember everybody and their brother having an issue with the way that Michigan was winning games, running the football. And then last year, there was more of a confidence level until Blake got hurt. And then everyone's like, oh, JJ hasn't been able to throw it all year. We can't beat him. JJ throws for damn near 300 on him, if not 300. And, Michigan blows them out again, Ohio State, speaking of.
Yeah.
And this year, JJ's clearly kind of been injured, dare I say, beat up. It's got some lingering stuff going on. And I don't think Michigan really thought to themselves, hey, we need to air it out. We need to do this. We need to throw on flea flickers. Come on. Michigan's able to beat a lot of teams just doing the bare minimum because they're so good up front on both sides of the football. And I have 0 reservations that Michigan can't beat Ohio State this weekend. Nothing from what I watched against Maryland thought to myself, oh, well, they can't do this against Maryland. They can't throw that game out the window. I'm done with it. I'm already over it. So nothing really more to add, but we can do how we win, how we lose, how we improve if you got anything else.
No, we can go right to that.
Yeah, for me, how we win, it was the pressure. I did enjoy the 4 sacks. Maryland is 100% a pass team. They don't even try to run the ball. I think they had like 37 yards rushing or something, maybe like that. So ultimately, 4 sacks maybe even comes off low. but they did get pressure. You got to like it. One safety in there, blocked punt, things like that. Like when your team is able to really just dominate in ways that don't include the offense, you're going to be at the next level. Blocking a punt, getting safeties, and the pressure of 4 sacks. What do you got?
Pretty much what you already said. With the highlight of Kenneth Grant, the dude has really come on over these last 3-4 games, and honestly I have nothing but love for Mason Graham, but we haven't had a nose tackle with this level of play since Maurice Hurst. Mozzie Smith was Mozzie Smith and all. I just didn't think he was at this level. And Kenneth Grant has just been all over the place for as big as he is, chasing down Kate Trinell in the Penn State game to just being everywhere in this one as well. But yeah, just much more of that. And I know, like you said, Maryland doesn't really try to run the ball a whole lot, but they held them to 15 yards on the ground. And I think the longest run Roman Hemby had that day was 7 yards. So hold them in check. That's all you can ask for,
Yeah. How we lose. I won't make excuses. Injuries right now. That's my biggest issue with this team is just like, you lose Roman Wilson in the first half. That seemed to be a completely difference maker for this offense. Yeah. Roman Wilson not being able to stretch the field. JJ being hobbled / beat up / injured. I think there was somebody else I'm missing off the top of my head. Oh, Carson Barnhart got injured, beat up. It sounds like Michigan's going to be full go this weekend, but things like that, like it just doesn't seem like this team has a way that they beat themselves or can be beaten.
Yeah.
Please don't be injured. That's how we lose.
For me, the 3 tush push scores were quite irritating. Billy Edwards is their backup quarterback, and he did it last year, I think once. He was throwing the ball a bit more last year because Tago got knocked out at one point. But on the goal line and three different times, Michigan's getting bumped back, and he's getting a score. So that was a little irritating to see. And then this JJ to Cornelius Johnson connection has just not been there throughout the course of the season. It's been sprinkled in and out. Cornelius Johnson only got 1 touchdown, and that was a tip drill against Bowling Green when JJ threw 3 picks that contest. And the Purdue game, CJ had one hit him right in the hands, didn't catch it. That was probably 6 points. And in this one, if he doesn't backpedal in this end zone, he's like on the 1 yard line, and he was missed by JJ. So they're just off, and hopefully they get their timing right this coming up Saturday, because CJ made the Buckeye secondary in Columbus last year look pedestrian, and want to see it happen again.
I will quickly defend the tush push. I think what's his face, their backup quarterback, Painter, is that his last name?
Billy Edwards.
Billy Edwards. He had 4 carries for 3 yards. At the end of the day, it's a yard. I mean, I understand they got it, but it's a yard. I was annoyed more than I was frustrated with the team. Like, okay, this is just stupid. But at the same time, teams that are able to do the tush push, credit to them. Philadelphia, in the NFL, they've mastered it. I find it annoying when I'm rooting against them, but when maybe I have money on them, I'm all cool with it. But watching Maryland have success against Michigan, I just thought to myself, Michigan's good enough that teams have to just tush push against them. That's where we're at, which not every team's going to do that. So I felt all right about it, but I understand your frustration. Where we improve, 2 things really: get healthy, get balanced. We were very balanced to start this season off, and we haven't been these last couple weeks. I do think that returns this Saturday, and it sounds like from what I'm seeing, the injury report's going to be pretty clear. Sounds like this team's going to be full go. So very exciting that we could be playing potentially our best football here in late November, Thanksgiving weekend.
Don't want to be boring, but I'm right with you. I got nothing else to add.
Writing down a mailbag question real quick. Okay. So, anything else on Maryland, or are we done on Maryland now?
Done on Maryland.
Okay. Last week's games, we'll go over those real quick, and then we'll move on to the game that y'all are here to listen to. Let's start off with Georgia, Tennessee. This one starts off 10-7. Then it's 24-10, and then it's 38-10. This is just a runaway by Georgia. Tennessee's officially out of it. Joe Milton era is probably dead in the water. What do you think of Georgia?
Heat check. They're heating up right at the most crucial part of the year. Brock Bowers is back. He's catching touchdowns again. Carson Beck, their new quarterback, but Stetson Bennett obviously no longer there, and he's just kind of transformed in the role as the years gone along. And man, they just look like the old Georgia.
Yeah. Ohio State against Minnesota. I think it was 37 unanswered, and then Minnesota finally kicked a field goal. Regardless, it's 37-3. Travion Henderson has damn near 150, 2 touchdowns. What did you think of this one?
I mean, good win. I've complimented Henderson on my podcast multiple times because he's on a roll. He's healthy. He's back. Michigan hasn't played him since the 2021 game, so they're gonna have to keep him in check Saturday.
Yeah,
because
I want this to come off as a compliment to both Ohio State and Michigan. I'm not trying to dig, and I'm not trying to lift up one. All of Michigan and Ohio State's games have looked pretty similar. They've beaten down every opponent they've played. Now, there have been times where I thought Ohio State's looked harder at times, but now over the last couple of games, Michigan's looked a little difficult. Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, I think we're in for a barn burner on Saturday. I've said this a couple of different times, 11-0 versus 11-0. It's a big-time title fight. We're going to see it, but I will say this. I was impressed by Ohio State just basically making this game look easy, Michigan State game look easy. But that's what Michigan had done earlier in the season. And those that try to discredit Michigan for playing a shitty schedule, I'm not trying to diss Ohio State here. I mean, they haven't played much of a better schedule. They played Notre Dame at the end of the day, But I think both teams have been on a collision course what seems like all year, and we're basically here.
Yeah.
North Alabama plays Florida State, number 4 Florida State. They jump out to a 13-0 lead because there is a what's the word I want to use here? Catastrophic, horrible. Anybody that likes college football whatsoever is not rooting for something like this. But Jordan Travis has a season-ending and college career-ending knee injury. They go down 13-0 and they roll off 58 straight to rebound. And what had upset alert all of a sudden, not from a 3-8 North Alabama team.
Yeah.
When you look, we've seen it. When Michigan lost Blake Corum, it can be like gut punch time. This is completely different because their best player is their quarterback. And opinions on Florida State, the Jordan Travis situation, how they rebound, not necessarily where they fit in the picture, but just this game. And
well, I mean, if they want to, they gotta obviously rally around Rodemaker, their backup, if they want to. I mean, because their season's not over with. They're not in the top 4 anymore. But it sucks to see. Last week, we've seen Jonathan Brooks, the star running back for Texas, go out. So that kind of basically put a damper on their portion of the season. But Florida State, Jordan Travis I think, pretty much got their school records now, or at least a couple of them. And he's already he's already posted on social media that he's done so in Tallahassee. So sucks to see. And it's even worse that it happened in this late in the year in November because it's like the Hendon Hooker thing. He's going to be basically MIA his rookie year in the NFL. So we're not going to see him for 2 more years fully healthy, or another year and a half rather. But it just sucks, man.
So they got Florida this weekend. That's always their last game of the year, just like Michigan versus Ohio State. It's always Florida State, Florida. And Florida's 5-6 right now, 3-5 in the SEC. They just lost to number 9 Missouri this weekend. Florida's played a couple of close games. They've played some good teams this year. I don't know that they're truly a 5-6 team, if that makes any sense. But they're favored by like 6.5 this weekend over a Florida State team that would normally be favored, but with the quarterback injury. Do you think Florida State takes that one? Obviously, we're kind of looking ahead here. They almost have to put the foot down in order to get themselves back in the college football playoff. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, the Seminoles playmakers are going to have to step up. That's Jordan Travis, their running back. That's Keon Coleman, their wide receiver, formerly Michigan State Spartan. They're gonna have to ball out to beat Florida. It's a big rivalry game down there, and it's going to be a tall task.
Washington goes on the road as a dog in this one, even though they've been the better team all year, to Oregon State, and they beat them 22-20 after not scoring in the second half. They held them off. Washington continues to beat good teams even when it's ugly. Opinions on Washington?
Well, I rode them into the grave last year, and I've been hesitant to do it this year to not get burned again. But, man, they look great. They beat 4 ranked opponents now. Number 8, Oregon at the time. Number 20, USC at the time, on the road. Number 18, Utah last week, and now on the road at Oregon State. They win. So 3 in a row right there. Southern Cal, Utah, Oregon State. And now they have to play Washington State, which Washington State was ranked early in the year. They're not going to just roll over and die. So this isn't an easy game either. But, man,
They've been hit or miss.
Yeah, Washington's looking good, man. And, I mean, their defense has given up some points this year. But, again, the Pac-12 is loaded with high-powered offenses. So it's not like Washington is just, like, dead to rights because they're not talented. But, I mean, they're going to be a good team. They're number 4 now in the country.
Oregon goes on the road, rolls. Texas goes on the road, rolls. Alabama at home over Chattanooga, snooze fest. Missouri takes care of Florida. Louisville takes care of Miami. Penn State takes care of Rutgers. But then we got another one here, Arizona, who comes out of the dead over the last couple weeks and beats Utah. They've kind of retaken themselves as the number 3 team in the Pac-12 over USC, over Utah. They're basically right there behind Oregon and Washington, and then potentially Oregon State, I guess. But opinions on the Jedfish Arizona Wildcats, the basketball school, just showing everybody the door. What's opinion?
Well, you already mentioned, you dropped his name earlier, but our boy Shane. Again, if you guys, the listeners, don't remember, we talked about like 3 months ago, and I found myself defending Rich Rodriguez's time at Arizona because he upset Oregon numerous times, Mariota teams numerous times. I mean, just look at what Rich Rodriguez did in Arizona. He had 4 good years there. Arizona is not a blue blood program by any means, and he won crucial football games there. That's what Jedd Fisch is doing. But guess what? Jedd Fisch is doing it all in 1 year. He loses Mississippi State in the second game of the year on the road, whatever. But he loses to number 7 Washington at the time by a touchdown. Loses to number 9 USC on the road by 2. Loses to number 19 Washington State at the time. Beat them. So I apologize. I read it wrong. So 3 losses, but rattle off 3 ranked wins in a row. The Wildcats, the Beavers, the Bruins, and then now the Utes here. So they're on to something. They got, I don't know, like, who's coming back next year or whatnot, but Jedd Fisch is, I mean, you take away that Mississippi State loss into a win, dude, I mean, this team is going to be pushing for it, but they, you know, I don't know what else I can say. I'm rattling off here, rambling, but they got Arizona State on the road, and that's their rivalry game. They have a chance to make it to a New Year's Day bowl.
Yeah, I don't know much about their roster and what they return, but a 12-team playoff next year, Arizona feels interesting because they're going to be in what, the Big 12?
Yeah, and I'm looking at their stats right now. Like they got literally two. I don't know if one got injured or whatnot. I don't. Like I said, I don't know their roster, but they got two quarterbacks that they rolled this season. One's thrown 18 touchdown passes. The other one's thrown 10. So obviously,
Jeez.
whatever they're doing on offense is freaking working.
Drake May's kind of fizzled out. They go to Clemson, they lose. Kansas State, Kansas is a 21 versus 25 battle. Kansas State takes it on the road. That's pretty much all we got for last week's games. As for this week, let's kick her off. We got the game. Number 2, Ohio State at number 2, Michigan. College game day is going to be there. Big noon kickoff's going to be there. This game's 12 noon Fox. A couple of stats here. Actually, let's start off with a trivia question. You ready for a good trivia question?
Okay.
In the last 20 years of all college matchups, 3 times 11-0 versus 11-0. Can you name the 3 instances in the last 20 years?
Out of all college football?
All college football. It's happened 3 times. I'll give you one of them this weekend, Michigan, Ohio State.
Right. I don't know. Probably one's in the Pac-12 and probably one's in the SEC.
No, they are this year Michigan, Ohio State, last year Michigan, Ohio State, 2006 Michigan, Ohio State.
Oh, I kept thinking the Oregon loss was last year for Ohio State. My bad.
You're good. So basically, 11-0 versus 11-0 games do not happen unless it's Michigan versus Ohio State, which is kind of cool. The last 21 games have been decided by whatever team wins the rushing battle. So, kind of a fun stat there. This game is highlighted by 2 things. On Ohio State side of the ball, they're on a 2-game losing streak. On Michigan's side of the ball, they supposedly allegedly cheated these last 2 years. They're going to be without Jim Harbaugh, and they have to almost prove that these last 2 years actually mattered. Take it away.
I mean, regardless of that, I mean, Ohio State had Don Brown signs, and Ohio State, Purdue, Rutgers were sharing Michigan signs over the last 3-4 years as it is already. So everyone's stealing signs. Kind of Stallions sends people to do it in person. Who gives a shit? This
Real
is gonna
quick,
be
just because I want to piggyback off what you just said.
go ahead.
Tell me if this is accurate, because I know it is. Speed limit is 55. You're doing 65, okay? And a guy passes you. This is single lane. A guy passes you doing 75. What is your initial reaction to that person? Everybody has the same reaction. Oh, wasn't going fast enough for you, asshole? You know what I mean? Like, we all like get this like, oh, you know, look at this guy speeding while we are speeding. Literally, it's 55 mile an hour. We're doing 65, but because dude's passing us doing 75, we're judging them. And it's comical to me. It's comical. Or I'll give you a more extreme situation. You're on the highway, it's 70 miles an hour. You're clearly doing 77 easily. But a dude passes you doing 85 and a cop gets him. And what do you say? Should slow down, asshole, as we are all speeding. We're all speeding. Is that not the same scenario? It really is. It's like everybody is stealing signs. There is no more proof than you need that everybody has come out and said it. And then all of a sudden people have changed course. It's like, well, Connor Stallion's here. Everybody was involved and yada, yada, yada. Continue what you're about to say. I had to piggyback off that.
Right. I mean, I could go on for hours about previewing this game, but obviously Connor Stallings is not going to be on the sidelines. So regardless of this outcome, whatever, Ohio State fans are going to be like, see what happens when you don't have your sign stealer there. Listen, this game is going to be close because both teams are 95 to 98% healthy. Traven Henderson's back. Blake Corum is back. Blake wasn't even healthy in the 2021 game. He had an ankle injury. Everyone is expected to be full go, and I think it's just going to be two gladiators duking it out. That's why I think it's going to be a close game. I feel like it's been a while since it's been like a one possession game with under a few minutes to go here with a shot to win it. I just think it's going to be a three-point victory by the Wolverines. I think Michigan has got to win this game. I was asked by Jared, the friend of both of our pods, is this the most important game in the rivalry? And I said, not really. I think the 2021 game was, but I just think it's going to be very important for Michigan to have a sense of relief that this one will be over and they had the W. If they walk out of this into the tunnel with an L, it's just going to make the off season that much more ridiculous because I think this is going to be Jim's last hoorah, and we're gonna have to sacrifice bodies, everything, every ounce of energy you have is going to have to go into this one. So maybe it does sound like it's supposed to be the most important game in the rivalry, but I don't think it's that just in the sense of long term. I think in short term, it's a must win.
I just have so many questions. And obviously I have predictions too, but you're an Ohio State fan right now, and you believe Michigan cheated and that's the reason they won their last two games. That's fine, even though I'll prove those points to be wrong later. But that's fine. Okay, let's hypothetically say that's your take, and I agree. If Michigan wins this year, what's the excuse? Is it cheating still? Is that where we're at? I am curious, as these Ohio State fans, and, I don't know too many that are going to listen to this pod. Jared, shout out. I have a feeling you probably will, and I'm curious. Do you take this loss lying down if you lose this year? Or is it clouded by excuses and tainted with Michigan's cheating still? Second thing is if Michigan beats Ohio State and an interim coach beats Ryan Day, are you guys going to treat Ryan Day like you were treating us with Jim Harbaugh? Because while Ryan Day has it'll be 7. He'll have the 7 best losses anybody could ever possibly have as their only 7 losses. But that win column, those impressive wins, if you will, or top wins or signature wins, man, that is an awfully low category. Clemson, obviously, anytime you get a college football playoff win, that's huge. I'm not trying to downcredit that. But it's really that. Your bowl win against Utah doesn't mean much to me. Bowl wins outside of playoff games don't mean much. The Rose Bowl only meant so much that even half your freaking team sat out of it. Okay? And at the end of the day, you've beaten Notre Dame. Yeah, so did Michigan. Okay? Jim Harbaugh's beaten Notre Dame twice, I think. And Jim Harbaugh's beaten the drums off Penn State. Michigan and Ohio State are far and away better than everybody else in the Big Ten at this point. That's very clear. This is the 3rd straight year where this is a Big Ten championship game this weekend. I'm just struggling with, well, Ryan Day is 51-6, soon to be 51-7. And it's like, man, you guys were calling for Harbaugh to be fired because he couldn't beat Urban Meyer, who's one of the greatest college coaches of all time. And we've beaten this like a drum, and I don't even want to get into this, but Harbaugh took over the team when Urban Meyer was raising a college football championship. So, another question is just like, is Michigan able to win this game and move on, or is it like, am I just gonna keep hearing that everything's tainted? Is not even just Ohio State fans, like just anybody that's listening is just like, this season is just tainted. Am I not allowed to celebrate as a fan? Is that where we're at? As far as that question goes, is this the most important Ohio State game, Michigan-Ohio State game? It's weird because there's an argument to be made that every year, depending on what the stakes are at the time, that it's the most important game. I would argue it is the most important game for both teams. While Michigan's 2021 was more important because that got this train rolling, Ohio State is this is their most important game because, like, they're on a 2-game slide. And per Ryan Day's comments this week, is the only reason you lost is because Michigan cheated. Okay? Interesting comments to be made right before the game, in my opinion. But I don't know. I just think going into this game, the way that the Big Ten is going to be structured next season with a 12-team playoff, this game will be played Thanksgiving weekend next year. And then literally the very next week, it could be played again. It'll be the last time that this game has the urgency. It'll be the last time that this game has the ramifications, because I believe, and we'll get to this a little bit later, I believe the loser of this game is out. Not of the Big Ten championship game, of everything. They are done. They are eliminated. The loser of this game is eliminated. And if that's all true, then it has to be the most important game by default. And as time keeps going, I think we'll find more and more of these things. Like, we'll find different things to kind of tune in. But with Michigan's cheating scandals, with Ryan Day's hot seat, with the looming 12-team playoff, with what the Big Ten championship game moves to, this game feels boiling hot.
Yeah, and like again, like his question specific was, is this game Saturday the most important in rivalry history? And like I said,
I think it is.
I think it was in 2021. I don't think it is this year, but I think it's a must win, if that makes any sense. And I just think it's a must win because, to me, it won't be this way. But if Michigan loses, then the last 2 years are going to be illegitimate in the eyes of the enemy. So I don't really give a shit. It's just going to be annoying to hear it forever and whenever it stops. But if Michigan wins, then it's just like, F you, told you so. But
yeah,
Connor Stallions was on payroll as of last year, 1 year. 2021 and before that was literally all volunteer work. So he's still around the program. So, I mean, we obviously don't know the degrees of how the volunteer work worked. Was he there on the sidelines during those games? I don't know. Was he there Monday through Friday? I don't know. But, it's like, if he was volunteering then, he was doing a really shitty job because Michigan was getting spanked in big games anyway. So, I don't know. It is what it is. But, I'm going to be in the edge of my seat Saturday, 100%, because I think it's going to be an absolute dogfight, and I won't be able to. I just won't. My emotions, I won't be able to handle seeing them lose.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think, as far as cheating goes, just because I want to bring this up before we kind of move on. you can equate cheating to a lot of things. Turnovers, I think you can say cheating. Offensive plays, I think you can say cheating. Defensive plays, I think you can say cheating. There's a lot of things that associate with cheating. One thing that does not associate with cheating is penalties. And Michigan has absolutely dominated Ohio State these last 2 years in keeping their mind right going into this game. Last year, Ohio State 9 penalties for 91 yards. I'm sorry, that has nothing to do with signs. Literally 0. And as I'm pulling up 2021, the last home game that Michigan played against them, I'm pulling it up briefly here. Hang tight just a second. It is 10 penalties for 66 yards. Those things are killers. That has nothing to do with cheating. There's no cheating involved with penalties, okay? So at the end of the day, Ohio State has been beating themselves. There's the famous video of Aiden Hutchinson absolutely bulldozing. I think it's Paris Johnson. It may not be.
It's Thayer Munford.
Okay, Aiden Hutchinson absolutely just throws him down like a child. And it's like, where are the signs on this play? This isn't signs. So create your narratives. Do whatever you want. Whatever helps you sleep better at night that Ohio State lost. And, your coach is obviously the conductor riding the train. It is very clear to me that Jim Harbaugh and Ryan Day do not like each other. And they don't have to. That's what makes this rivalry even better. What do you want to do here? You want to do some predictions? You got some stuff on the game? What do you want to do?
Not much. I don't want to really do predictions. I mean, we have. I don't know if you want to do the mailbag now, later, but I think I made my prediction really when I just said I think this is going to be a field goal game. It's going to come down to the wire, I think, and so far I've been wrong these last 2 years. 2021, I didn't give us a fighting chance. There was hope, and it happened. Last year I was very sketchy about this game. Obviously, the health of the team was the big issue. No Blake Corum. Mike Morris was a shell of himself. And then Donovan Edwards took over at the end. And it was in Columbus, a feat that wasn't accomplished since George Bush. So this year, I'm predicting a tight-knit battle. So, hopefully I'm wrong. And hopefully it's another blowout in Michigan's favor.
Yeah, I have a couple of points to make real quick then. So I'm not going to change my tune. I've thought Michigan's going to win this game pretty much all year, and I've been pretty consistent with that. Couple things that I think are the factors here and just that are going to stand out. In 2021, Michigan hosting the game, it had this we need to win this game feel. And there was like this belief where we could win the game. But the big house, as loud as it was, and it was probably the best environment we've both probably seen in probably both our lifetimes, I do think it could be better than that. And this time around, I think Michigan fans are going to fill the big house with the idea of we're going to win this game. And we can help be the difference in that. And I do think that they will answer the challenge. I think Michigan Stadium is going to be outrageous. Second thing, it's our buddy Blake Corum's birthday on Saturday. I think he is posed for his best game of the year. He was great against Penn State. I think he could be off for another great game. And as Donovan Edwards was in Penn State, where he kind of broke off a little bit, I think he's in for another breakout. I think Will Johnson is the key to shutting down Marvin Harrison. And when I say shutting down, let me rephrase this. Keeping him in check to a point where it's like he's not the factor that he has been. I think Will Johnson will answer the call, show why he's a 5-star too. And I think that's the game within the game. And I think Michigan's going to make Kyle McCord look pretty mediocre. I kind of hinted that I had a prediction for this game last week that I wanted to save. My bold prediction is that Kyle McCord gets humiliated, and this is like Ohio State struggles to score. I think realistically, I like Michigan 34-21. I think Michigan handles them. I really do. But it would not shock me if Kyle McCord just gets completely depantsed and they only score maybe 10. I think Marvin Harrison and Travion keep them in the game, and that's why I'm giving them the 21. I think Michigan, I think they control this. I think the environment's too much. There's too much of a chip on their shoulder. This team responds in the biggest games. Even the TCU game, we've talked about this so many times. They played really well, but they shot themselves in the foot. I just don't see that happening this time. I think this team, they even played really well in the Michigan State loss, too. The only game they didn't play well in was the Georgia game. I like Michigan here. I
really hope so. Something that I thought was interesting when I was kind of like looking into in the statistics, Ohio State as a team, they're like 86th in turnovers on defense. Like they've only forced 7 interceptions all year long, and they don't really sack the quarterback a whole lot. The Penn State game, whatever, they had 4 as a team, which was probably the most they had in one game all year long. Maybe not. Maybe they had more in the non-conference. But I just thought that it was interesting that statistically, when trying to turn the ball over, they're not there, but they're still a good defense. So I thought that was kind of an interesting anecdote. But like Marvin Harrison, probably going to get his. He got his last year. He caught a touchdown in the first half. Cade Stover might make a play or two. Travion Henderson might make a play or two. But it's all about limiting everything. And, the 2021 game, we can talk about signs and all this and whatnot. We know what Ohio State's offense is going to do. Like C.J. Stroud, I know Kyle McCord's not C.J. Stroud, but, like, they all got good numbers. They just didn't win the game.
Yeah, C.J. threw for 400 against us in 21.
Like, they all have good numbers. They just didn't win the game. So, I just keep Travion Henderson. We just need them to make Ohio State, I guess, maybe throw it, but you do that and you make them one-dimensional. That's one less thing you have to worry about. I'm just hoping that Michigan plays a complete game. And like I said, we got Blake Corum healthy. It's birthday weekend. Let's just show out and go balls to the wall.
Ready for some mailbag?
Let's do it.
All right, here. Hang on here. All comments. All right, first one. Looking ahead to what could be next year for Michigan, Harbaugh suspension, losing a lot to the draft, sanctions, schedule. Has there been a game more important in the program's history? So we did touch on that already. I will say this. Losing a lot to the draft, I think, is 100%. Sanctions and Harbaugh suspension obviously probably just go together. The schedule, everybody's going to have a tough schedule. And I do think that Michigan's actually still – I've thought about this a lot. I think about this all the time, is how Michigan looks next year. I think it's 100% dependent on whether or not JJ comes back, first off. I think that's the number one key because they have a lot of defensive line pieces coming back. I feel confident about the running back room next year. I feel confident about the tight end room. But the offensive line will still be fine with Sharon Moore there. They've been able to take on the transfer portal. It's really just like how bad does Jim get penalized, I guess. But anything else that you want to add to that? I know we kind of talked about it.
Well, my prediction, I really think that Jim Harbaugh could be, if he does face a suspension that takes him out of 3 quarters at minimum to almost the whole year next season, I think there's a very good chance that he is off to the NFL, Sherrill Moore promoted head coach. Kurt Campbell, our quarterbacks coach, stays on because he's already, recruiting very well. We just got Carter Smith, which was the 5th best quarterback in the 25 class. Not Bryce Underwood, of course. Excuse me. He gets promoted offensive coordinator. Jesse Minter stays on. Really, the only hole that you have is linebackers coach. And Rick Minter, Jesse Minter's dad, is filling in. And if people don't know who Rick Minter is, which I didn't, he has been a head coach at Cincinnati for numerous years. He's been a linebackers coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's been a defensive coordinator at Notre Dame before. So whether he's short-term, long-term, I mean, I feel like you can't get any worse than that. But, next season is going to be huge. Like, the schedule right now on paper looks super tough because of what the teams look like now. But, like, USC, Caleb Williams isn't going to be there anymore. Their defense is ass. Washington, Michael Penix Jr., he's going to be gone. Oregon, Bo Nix, he's going to be gone. So Texas and Ohio State is looking to be about the toughest games right now, and about the hard ones. The problem
Penn State brings a lot back.
True, but they're not. Michigan doesn't play Penn State next year. They are going to be losing a lot to the draft themselves. Obviously, his decision is going to be huge, and so with attrition, I'm looking at maybe an 8-win, 9-win team. And realistically, the remedy for that is a quarterback situation, like we just alluded to. And again, if JJ goes, Chip Kelly is going to be out at UCLA most likely. Maybe Dante Moore comes back home to the state of Michigan and transfers to Ann Arbor. That's a possibility, long shot, big bold prediction, whatever you want to call it. So that's just that's where my head's at.
This one comes in from you. Any rituals or habits do you do each year before the game? Example, rewatch old games or anything like that. Not anything specifically for me. Obviously I always catch your hype video. Are you doing one this year?
Unfortunately not. Just don't have the time. A lot of that has been the pods have just been just absorbing all my free time. Like Monday, I don't do anything Sunday. That's like the unwind day, right? You watch football on your fat ass all day, enjoy time with your family, whatever. And Monday, I come home from work, I take a shower, kids go to bed, and I'm typing up the podcast for here and on mine. So like Monday's out of the question. I just don't have enough time.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't necessarily have any rituals. I'll go back and I'll watch some highlights from maybe, things that people share on Twitter.
Yeah.
But like I can never get enough of the 2021 highlights that people have been sharing. I always love this time of year because my Facebook memories is full of predictions / trash talk / just whatever. And that's always fun to go back and kind of look like who was saying what and what was the outcome of that year. And so that is one thing I really do like to do is just this time of year's Facebook memories. But what about you?
Well, I like to. For me, it goes with like holiday movies. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, me and my wife will rewatch our favorite holiday movies, and that's how I am with this rivalry. There's two rivalry documentaries that I like to relive, and that is the HBO rivalry documentary that came out before the 2007 game, and then there's another one that came out before the 2013 game called Tiebreaker. And that really just focuses on the 1973 game between Bo and Woody, where Michigan and Ohio State tied 10-10, and then the athletic directors voted Ohio State to go. And the conspiratorial side of all that is because Dennis Franklin, Michigan's quarterback, got knocked out of that game with a shoulder injury, so he wasn't able to throw the football very well. So, it's like, oh well, Ohio State's going to go to this game because Dennis Franklin for Michigan's hurt. So the conspiracy side of that is pretty cool because, the athletic directors, a lot of them were either Michigan or Ohio State alums. So it's like you got these two factions and you got these two tweeners where one guy's like, well, he voted for Ohio State. And then the other guy will be like, no, I was told he voted for Michigan. So they got basically a dinner table in a hotel. Dennis Franklin's there. Archie Griffin's there. Shuttlesworth's there. Mike Lantry, Michigan's field goal kicker, he's there. And it's just them old guys just sitting, hanging around, talking, and not just really talking trash to each other, but just embracing the rivalry. And that's where, up until recently, I really feel like a lot of people kind of lost that, that respect. Everyone hates each other if you're wearing the other colors, but that respect, that mutual respect, I don't think is there anymore. But those guys had it, and I just thought that, seeing those old guys, kind of mingle with each other was really cool. And I'll stop here after this, but like Dennis Franklin was Michigan's first black quarterback, and he makes a comment in the documentary where he didn't want to be known as Michigan's first black quarterback. He wanted to be known as the next Michigan quarterback. And Cornelius Green, which he was also African American, he was Ohio State's quarterback. And, he admits to them in front of everybody at the dinner table. He's like, Dennis, he's like, I looked up to you as another African American, and you really set the goal. You pushed me to try to be a better player, and just the mutual respect there was just really cool to see. So that's the two that I watch. And I guess I'll have one more thing. I lied. The hype video I made for before the 2021 game, I think that almost reached 60,000 views, and I actually watched it this morning on my way to work because I think it was probably one of my better ones I've ever did. Obviously, there's just a lot of emotion that year, but so yeah.
Yeah, as far as the mutual respect thing goes, I think when I have a friend that's an Ohio State fan, it's easier to have that mutual respect towards one another, where you're going to kind of give each other some shit, but at the same time, it's all fun. It's just a football game.
Yeah.
It's when you don't know the person where I think it kind of gets a little over the line, because people say things that are just like over the top, and
social media, dude.
Yeah, it's social media in general. It's kind of the same thing with politics. If you truly have a friend that you respect, but you don't necessarily see eye to eye on a political issue, I think a lot of times you could potentially get past it. But if you don't know the person, you don't have that type of relationship, you just immediately think like that person's a douchebag, or that person doesn't know what they're talking about. They're uneducated. They're this or they're that. And it's kind of the exact same thing with Michigan, Ohio State. When you see somebody post something, you initially get irritated, like you're like, oh, this person's just some dumb idiot. And it's like, that could be your buddy that has the same concept. You know what I mean? So I grew up in Michigan, but moved to Ohio in 8th grade. So I have tons of family that's in Michigan, and obviously I've adapted to most of your friend group, and a lot of them live in Michigan. Like I met most of your friends and stuff to this point. And a lot of the friends that I have are mostly Ohio State fans. I don't have that many Michigan fans that I've met on my own that I didn't meet through you specifically. So, it's different, because I think for the most part, like Jared Redding, shout out Jared, shout out Andrew Bradish. Both those people have done Michigan, Ohio State pods with us in the past. And we've had great conversation on here. Plenty of really great conversation. And the predictions are fun and the banter's fun, but I think just like naturally through social media or through just like people you don't know, you see things, you just get irritated, people that I barely know will see me wearing Michigan, and they'll come up and they'll just start talking to me like we're buddies about us cheating. It's just like, get out of here. Just get out of here.
So maybe there is respect out there, and social media just kind of clouds everything. It could be that. I just know that when you see a tweet on there, and then if you do respond or see another response, it's like, oh, this is a satire account, or oh, they're being sarcastic. It's just the tone of words. Obviously, you're right. And then, I think a lot of people in general just don't really seek confrontation when you're in person. So there's just kind of that buffer there of being in front of a phone screen. But yeah, it definitely makes things a lot more annoying. And obviously we've seen over the last year and a half that it's made the Michigan State rivalry hella toxic, and you just don't want to be any part of it.
Yeah. Your next question here: any Heisman-worthy players on Michigan's roster? At this point, it's Blake Corum or bust, in my opinion. I think JJ's been passed over for Blake, and I don't even know that Blake has a huge case. But I will say this: Blake Corum has scored in every single game this season. He has not had a quote-unquote down game. There's been some lack of rush yards, but those games he wasn't necessarily needed to rush for 1 billion yards, but he scored in all of them. If Blake Corum were to go for another $150 and 2 touchdowns or more, that would set the case for a pretty eye-opening statistics where I think he would have over 1,000 yards. Yeah, he would have over 1,000 yards and in like 22 touchdowns or something like that. So at that point, I think it's worth talking about, but he would have to, in my opinion, really put the foot down on his birthday in this game to really get himself back in that conversation. And then the Big Ten championship, you'd have to stomp it out.
Yeah, he'd have to. This is part of the year where Aiden Hutchinson was a finalist. He had the Ohio State game, and then followed it up by being the MVP of the Big Ten championship. So that got him to New York, and I think that if Blake Corum has over 140, 150 yards, touchdown or 2, and then follows that up next week with a good outing, yeah, he maybe at least gets an invite, right? I think if he scored like 2 touchdowns, like you said, he's got 22 on the year. A running back with 22 rushing touchdowns on a college football playoff team, be kind of hard to turn away that.
Yeah, I would agree, but again, it hasn't been what it was last year. Last year he would have 100% won the Heisman had he not got hurt. Just it's not how the season's ended up this year. So, and by a lot of the season, he was overshadowed by JJ. So,
yeah.
I'm going to ask you one more question, and then we're going to close with. I'll ask you a question. We'll do our games, and then we'll close with college football playoff talk.
Cool.
What are you thankful for?
Well, thankful for. It would sound cliche, but my friends and family. First and foremost, my wife, my kids, love them to death. She's my best friend and my rock for anything, my fallback to anything. Person who I can always fall to talk about anything. Thankful that I live in a good part of the country, got a roof over my head, just the day-to-day things, got heat and water. I've years ago, before being married, whatever, I've had my heat turned off because I didn't pay a bill, like little things like that you're thankful for, because when you don't have them, you're like, well, this blows. But outside of that, man, it's nice to have close friends. But really, that's where I'm at. You?
Yeah, a couple things stand out. Obviously, the cliche ones. My wife and my kids, and our family. Obviously, nothing's ever perfect, but when you have a great family, it obviously it makes all the holidays great. And I think we take a lot of things for granted. People we have here, people we don't have here. You miss the ones you don't have, and the ones you have, you just always assume they're going to be here tomorrow. I think it's a great time of the year where we get the 3 things that a lot of men love: food, family, and football. It'll be a great weekend for that, both with the NFL with college, what God's provided me with both, my job, my house, the health of my family, things that I try not to take for granted and try to keep eyes open and in perspective on. And I think, as it pertains to this podcast, like we always, we joke that Michigan's our religion. And I think it's a cool thing that Michigan football, while neither of us went there, neither of us are alums, it's something important enough to both of us that has brought not just us, me and you together, but just like the people we've met through life. And we've had great memories through this thing called football and Michigan football, and hopefully we'll make more of those memories this weekend. And yeah, lots to be thankful for.
Well, I got two more things. One's a comment, one's a question. I'll start out with my my spiel here. Shout out to the wives though, like seriously, because you have 3 kids, I have 2. We essentially last weekend or 2 weekends ago, literally pawned our kids off on the wives. They had them the whole weekend, and we got to go fuck around and find out, and
Yeah.
and enjoy ourselves. So I don't know. It's just get to I'm spoiled. My wife rarely tells me no. I can't do something, and she steps up and takes care of them. So well, having said that, I'll ask you this. This one is a question. Thanksgiving, what is your plate look like? What is Jeff Johnson's ideal Turkey Day plate look like? What's on it?
Dark meat turkey, covered in gravy. I will take one, and I'm being real specific here, but this is how it's going to look.
Yeah.
A lot of dark meat, but I'll take one of like the fat slabs of white meat. You know how there's just like the big fat top? I'll take one of those, the rest all dark meat, right? Big thing of mashed potatoes with the gravy as well. So I got the gravy on both the mashed potatoes and the turkey. And then I kind of pick around for the sides. If it's corn, if it's stuffing. I'm not a cranberry sauce guy. I don't really do like sweet potatoes or anything like that. It's the turkey, it's the mashed potatoes, it's the corn, and it's roughly, depending on how many people are there, probably 3 to 5 different rolls, not all at once. It's maybe 2 to start, and then I have another one later, and then another one after that. And then I'm not a huge pie guy, but I love Hershey pie.
Okay.
So like my daughter just walked down here. She's so confused. She's like, "This is a football podcast." Yeah. What's yours look like?
So I'm a white turkey meat guy. So
Okay.
that'll be on there next to the mashed potatoes, both with gravy on it. I am a huge sucker for stuffing. So that is something I'll reheat for like the next 3 days. So stuffing will be on there, and then I'll have green bean casserole next to it. And then if it's a hit or miss, if there's corn, I'll definitely grab it because I'm a mix everything, all the sides in one spoonful or fork size bite. Get a little bit of everything in each bite, and then butter me up a roll or 5. And at the end of the day, after all said and done, my dessert is turtle pie, because I am a glutton for caramel and fudge. So yeah, turtle pie sundae from Marie Callender's probably will be on display. But yeah, dude, that's me.
You can ask my wife this. I grew up on these. I don't know what it is. I don't even think it's nostalgia because I do love them. Thanksgiving dinner, while I do like it, it's not my favorite part. My favorite thing, my absolute favorite thing is the next day, my leftovers. I'll take 2 pieces of bread. I'll toast them, smother them in turkey, smother them in gravy, and then I eat them as a sandwich. Sometimes with a fork, sometimes I'm picking it up.
Yeah.
And I just have a hot turkey sandwich. And my wife had never even heard of them until she got with me. And it's just like, that's what I eat for the next 3 days. Like literally the rest of the weekend, that's what I'm eating.
Yeah.
And I just love them. I love hot turkey sandwiches. I look forward to them every year.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So let's hit this weekend's games. We'll talk the biggest ones, the ones that are going to matter here. I am pulling them up as we speak.
Well, speaking, I mean, obviously, the winner of Saturday is going to Indianapolis, and Iowa's already clinched it because the Big Ten West is still absolute horrendously garbage.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right. This weekend. Let's see here. Yeah, so Iowa's going to beat Nebraska, but even if, doesn't really matter, right?
I mean, I don't think it's a gimme win for Iowa, but I mean, regardless, they're going to be in Indy, so they could not even show up, and who gives a shit?
Yeah. Oregon State at Oregon. Does Oregon State have enough to upset Oregon? I don't think they do. Oregon's at home, 8:30 at night. Place gonna be rowdy. Opinions there.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think Oregon's going to win this one, of course, but it's it's obviously a rivalry game, but being in Austin Stadium at night, I think it might be close for a half or something, maybe a quarter, but I think Bo Nix and the Ducks pull away. It's pretty wild. The dude is thrown for 3,500 yards and only 2 interceptions with 35 tutties to go along with it. So, dude is definitely better at Oregon than he was at Auburn.
Yeah. Let me briefly say this. Thanksgiving night, number 12, Ole Miss is in action. And then Black Friday, starting at noon, you have number 13, Oklahoma in action. Number 17, Iowa in action. At 3:30, you have number 23, Tulane in action. At 4, you have number 9, Missouri in action. At 7:30, you have number 7, Texas in action. At 7:30, you have number 11, Penn State in action at Michigan State. Hopefully they slaughter them. Then we just talked about Oregon State, Oregon. That's all Black Friday. Huge slate of ranked teams.
I'm glad you said that because I was just scrolling through and didn't notice it. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty freaking sweet that we have a college game on Thanksgiving. And by the way, before you go further, that Penn State Michigan State game is at Ford Field.
It is at Ford Field. I forgot that. Yes.
21-point favorite.
I forgot that was a Ford Field game. This game being so late in the year, it kind of feels like a dud that it's at Ford Field, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, East Lansing is, I would say, at least 2 hours from Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. That's kind of putting Michigan State fans in a hard place because you're 4-7. I don't see a lot of Spartans traveling to this. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's because of locale still being somewhat decent, and it's an excuse to go downtown to go gamble and do whatever. But like, I think Penn State fans are going to be overtaking that stadium, and you can get tickets right now on StubHub for $21, which is absurd.
Kentucky at Louisville. Can Kentucky upset Louisville and kind of knock them out of their hunt?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Kentucky in the SEC, though, it is an interesting matchup. Louisville, though, 10-1. I still can't believe they lost to Pitt.
Yeah.
They should be undefeated.
Yeah.
Jeff Brom, his first year there. Obviously, we played Jeff Brom and Purdue last year in the Big Ten Championship there. He's got a good thing going there. Iron Bowl, Alabama at Auburn. Any chance of an upset? Auburn is they're getting 14.5, it looks like here.
Absolutely not. Auburn is absolutely horrendous. At one point in the year, they lost 4 in a row, and they got on a 3-game win streak. Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, and then they lost to New Mexico State over last weekend, 31-10 at home. Dude, give me Bama, and it's a 14.5-point spread. Mostly probably because that's a rivalry and it's at Auburn. But I think Bama's just going to blow the doors off these fools.
4 o'clock on Fox. This one will come right after Michigan, Ohio State. Washington State at Washington. We just talked about this. Washington State's been frisky this year, but Washington's favored by 16.5. I do think Washington finds a way to get a W, though I think in a rivalry game, Washington State might make it fun.
They could make it fun. Now, Washington State, before beating Colorado like a drum last weekend, they lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games in a row. So, I mean, they're 5-6. Their motivation right now is let's make a bowl game season a win on the road at number 4 Washington. So, I mean, I feel like they're going to be putting the effort, but at the end of the day, I think Washington wins this.
Hey, I'm podding. No fighting. All right. Last but not least of the games that are going to matter. Earlier today, when we were talking about Florida State, Florida, I said Florida was favored. Maybe they weren't favored from what I've seen. It's number 5 Florida State at Florida. Florida's 5-6 on the year. Hey, sorry, my dogs are going ape shit. I think Florida State is just gonna find a way here.
Yeah. Oh,
You
yeah.
agree?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Graham Mertz, the former Wisconsin Badger quarterback, is here. Their offense, I don't think, is the issue. I think it's mostly on their defense. They've given up a lot of points. They've, given up 43 to number 1 Georgia. They've given up 39 to a shitty Arkansas team. They've given up 52 to LSU. They've given up 33 to Missouri. The last time they won a game was at South Carolina, and that was a month and a half ago. So I think it'll be close, but I think that Florida State could potentially eke this one out.
Yeah, I just think they'll take care of business. I think that's it. There's no really other big games here. Ready to talk college football playoff?
We can.
Okay, I know who wrote in here. I think his name's Keith. Oh, Garth Wilson. My question is to take about 15 minutes outside the game and really break down the college football playoff. What if Georgia wins the SEC, Florida State wins ACC, Washington wins Pac-12, Texas wins Big 12, and we'll say Michigan wins Big 10. But I think they're better who gets left out. Also, there's other parts like what if Bama or Oregon wins. So we've kind of talked about this already. We'll continue to talk about this. 1 second. Hey, kennel up. Kennel up. Sorry. Trying to concentrate. These dogs are going crazy. So Georgia, I think, is in a really weird spot because they're the 2-time defending champions. But if they lose to Bama and chaos ensues, do they still get in?
I think I can't rule out them dropping to 4 and then Bama jumping them into the 3 hole maybe. But I think Georgia, I think there's a very good chance that you have 2 SEC teams in here. But on the other flip side is Georgia's had a cakewalk schedule, and if they get up against Bama and lose, then maybe that SOS at strength of schedule will bite them in the ass, and they'll be like, all right, 1's enough for you. You're done.
I think there's a world where Alabama beats Georgia but gets left out for Georgia and Texas. I think that world exists. I don't know that you can leave Georgia out if they go undefeated in the regular season. They're 2-time defending champs and they lose to Bama by 3. That I'd have a hard. If I'm a Georgia fan, I would be outraged that trying to defend your title, you lose by 3 on a neutral site. It ain't really a neutral site because it's damn near in your backyard. But you lose by 3, and you get left out of defending your championship after you basically cakewalked. I know it's not the best schedule, but they destroyed everybody they played. I've said this a billion times. I think the loser of Michigan Ohio State's out
Yeah.
because the loser wouldn't play in a Big 12 or a Big 10 championship game, so they lose the extra game there. They can't avenge a loss. I think they're just out. Florida State cannot lose. They have to win their next two. They have to beat Florida and they have to beat Louisville. And in my opinion, they have to do it by more than 7 in both games.
Yeah.
They have to do what Ohio State did with Cardell Jones. They have to prove it.
Yeah, they have to. If they look like run of the mill, above average on offense, I just think they're going to get. I think it's going to be the Dennis Franklin 1973 Michigan 10-10 tie situation where the committee is obviously not going to come out on Front Street and say it, but they're going to hold them back and be like, listen, we put Florida State in there without their regular starting quarterback in there. It's just not gonna bode well because, again, at the end of the day, it's all about dollars. It's all about eyeballs, and you're gonna want your best 4 teams out there, the most complete teams with that, and also, in my opinion, includes health. I think that'll be a factor.
Do you agree that the winner of Michigan Ohio State is 100% in?
100. The winner is in. Yeah, the Big Ten champ. You can't withhold. The Big Ten is a profitable conference. You can't hold those guys out.
Okay. Do you think if Florida State goes undefeated, they beat Florida and beat Louisville, even if it's by a couple of points each, do you think they're guaranteed in or no?
No. If Washington loses, so the thing is like if Oregon wins, I think they leapfrog Florida State. Oregon's look more impressive. They got better wins. If Washington wins, then that's going to be the Berlin Wall, and Florida State cannot cross it.
Do you think if Washington goes undefeated, they're for sure in? As of right now, they're in.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And if Oregon beats Washington, Washington's then out, Oregon's just in.
Yeah, I really, when it comes down to brass tacks, I think the only glaring question marks here that's going to make anything spicy is going to be the SEC title game and the Pac-12, of course, but like mostly the SEC because like it all comes down to see if what you're going to do with a Georgia losing in the conference title game, and then I think the Pac-12 champ, whether it's the Ducks or the Huskies, I think they're in regardless.
If Bama beats Georgia, let's just play this scenario out. Bama beats Georgia. Does Texas get the automatic bid over Bama and Georgia?
I think Texas is out regardless. I think I might even commented on that last time we were talking college football. I think Texas is just going to be the redhead stepchild here. I think they're in a rock and a hard place right now because again, in front of you there's 2 Pac-12 juggernauts. You have an SEC champ potentially right behind you, and then you have the 2-time back-to-back defending champion SEC way in front of you. I just think they're just caught in this in the void, in limbo.
Do you think there's any way that?
Sorry, Brad.
Is it? Yeah. Do you think it's just you don't hold any weight for Texas beating Bama back in September?
No. Just like with Ohio State beating Notre Dame back then, that in that situation, I don't think it holds up anymore. Because Notre Dame 3 losses, and I don't want to sound like a hater. It's a long time ago, and it's not like I don't know. I don't find that validation there.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I do think Texas needs a lot of help. I think Texas, if you're a Texas fan, you're listening to this, you're like, how does Texas get in? Big Ten automatic bid, Washington automatic, Georgia automatic, and Florida State loses. I think Texas is then in, right? Georgia gets in, they go undefeated. Michigan goes undefeated. Ohio State falls out. Washington goes undefeated. They're up to 3. Florida State loses. Texas jumps Oregon because Washington beats Oregon again, and Texas gets in at 4. I think that's the only scenario. Would you agree with that or disagree with that?
Did you say Florida State wins or loses?
Loses.
I guess that maybe does open the door, but that's a lot of chaos to happen in order for that to.
That's not much chaos. That's just everybody staying undefeated except Florida State.
Then if everyone's saying like who's undefeated, so you said Georgia
Undefeated, Michigan undefeated at 2, Washington undefeated moves to 3, and then Florida State loses. So basically, are you taking Texas or Ohio State?
So Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Washington 3. That opens up that door there. If Florida State doesn't look like they can handle it,
well, they would lose. I have them losing essentially.
Okay, I guess you could.
Okay, I think that's pretty much it. What are your predictions going into next weekend? Who are your 4?
My number 1 is, I think it's going to be a hell of a ball game. I'll keep Georgia at 1. Michigan will move to 2. Washington will move to, man, I'm kind of torn between Washington and Oregon. I'll say Washington moves to 3. And then Florida State, man, I don't know. I guess it'd be Florida State between Texas there. I just don't see Florida State losing. I don't see them losing. To Florida, I know we kind of broke that down, and we're kind of up in the air with that. But I don't see them losing to Louisville. I'm probably coming off as a Longhorn hater right here. I just don't see any chance that a number 17 gets into number 4.
Okay. Yeah, obviously I've had Florida State. I've had it as Michigan, Oregon, Florida State, Bama. Those were my 4 that I've had getting in.
Yeah.
I've kind of changed tune a little bit. I think it's Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, Bama. And I don't know what I think Texas would get left out. And I think Bama could upset Oregon or upset Georgia. And I think they would just have to find a way to seed that. They may probably put Michigan 1, Georgia 2, Oregon 3, and then Bama 4 and have Michigan play Bama. Or move Bama to 3 and Georgia to 4 and have Michigan, Georgia start it off. And then Oregon, Bama play. But
I think no matter what dance we do, there's like this very low percentage part of me that just thinks that I feel like you can't rule out that the committee does some backwards limbo to get or to keep a 1-loss Georgia or a 1-loss Ohio State in the top 4 somehow. There's just something that's in the back of my head feeling like that could still be a possibility that they're gonna.
Well, Georgia would make sense, and I wouldn't argue it. Ohio State wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
If Ohio State loses to Michigan, I think they're out. They have to be.
Yeah, I mean, we both agreed on that, but I just have a feeling the committee. I can't rule out them doing something stupid and making up a case for them. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much it.
Because let me say this, I don't want to keep dragging this on, I guess, but like, let's just say this, like, without the college football rankings, like, if it was just like the BCS era, where it's just like 1 to 25, and then the top 2 play in the Natty, like, back then, I feel like I could be wrong, but back then, my memory is like, if you're the number 1 team and you lose 1 game, it's not like you just get dropped to 6, depending on who it is. It's like if you're at 1, you lose. I mean, what's the worst you do? 3 or 4, no matter what. So, I don't know. That's still plaguing my mind.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've brought that up. that if Georgia essentially is number one after this week and goes into the SEC title game, number one, if they lose to Bama, are you really going to drop them 5 spots?
Right. That's just
That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it'll be interesting. In years past, we've done all of this arguing, all this discussing, all for it to not matter because the right 4 teams were essentially picked. We've gotten down to maybe 5 where it's like, maybe that team could have, but for the most part, we've gotten the right 4. This year, there's a legit scenario where 8 teams deserve to make it. We'll see if that scenario plays out because that is the chaos that everybody keeps talking about. But, yeah. Anything else, my man?
No, I just think it's going to be, I don't know if the listeners out there, I mean, how many you bet, how many are in bowl game pools, pick 'em pools, whatever. It's going to be a fun bowl season. I mean, you got legitimately 25 teams here alone that, when they get paired up on New Year's Day, sometime before then, sometimes after then, it's going to be entertaining. Like, you go all the way to, like, for example, LSU and Notre Dame. I mean, that would be a fun matchup. Tennessee and Louisville would be a fun matchup. Penn State versus Penn State, aka Ole Miss, like them two, that'd be a good matchup. So it's like the bowl game pool that used to be around in our area that was going on for almost 30 years before the pandemic. That was a pool that got up into like 35 large every year, and man, I haven't done it in the last 3 years. I really hope they do it again because that made watching bowl games fun.
Yeah. I did see a 12-teamer and what that looks like. Listen to this. This is a stat, real quick. I don't know if I'll find the 12-teamer, but I'll leave you with this stat. Losses by teams ranked in the AP top 8 at this point in the season. Okay? 2014, 20 losses. 2015, 17 losses. 2016, 19 losses. 2017, 17 losses. 2018, 16 losses. 2019, 12 losses. I think you know where I'm going with this. 2021, 15 losses. 2022, 15 losses. 2023, 6. There's some really good football teams, man.
Yeah. Yep.
Some really good football teams.
Yeah, so, and it's gonna be a quarterback loaded draft.
Yeah, in a 12-team playoff, I think the way it's currently structured, I think Toledo would make the playoff.
No.
Because you get one at large. Or would the at large be Tulane? It would be between Tulane and Toledo.
Yeah, Tulane's ranked 23rd right now. It'd be hard to take out the Green Wave, but man, that'd be dope if Toledo got a bid.
And, we've been saying this since this whole thing was adopted. Would it be sweet to have a first-round bye? Absolutely. But Ann Arbor hosting a playoff game in January just screams football, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. 100%. That'd be awesome.
Yes. Yeah. So, next time we talk, win or lose, we will be back. We don't ever run. But hopefully next time we talk, we're celebrating a nice W, and we're previewing the Big Ten championship game. So we'll see you guys next time. And a massive Go Blue. Happy Thanksgiving to all your families. Thanks for always listening. We are thankful for you and you, the listener. And, yeah, anything else, Dan?
Go Blue, and good luck, ladies and gentlemen out there listening, watching. Good luck to your future sports bets this weekend, because I am laying the farm of the house, but I've been so close on my parlays lately. I've been 14 out of 16, 17 out of 18, It's gonna hit one of these days, boys.
One of these days. All right, we're out. Real talk.
Deuces.